It's time to bring you yet another amazing episode. And now, welcome your host.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. It's an engaging and enlightening talk show on life, relationships, and the business of life. Grab a cup of juice and just chill. Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. Live life. Live fully.
Good to have you on the show. This is Omobola Stephen, the also of Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. The show focuses on personal development and self-improvement with the occasion of expert and professionals and thought leaders who are adept in the topics of subjects of personal development and self-improvement. We provide disruptive yet constructive mindship conversations that is literally going to move you from where you have to where you need to be on the podcast. Now, we value and have come to embrace personal development and self-improvement, and I'm encouraging you also, as I've done in time past, and even to this very moment, that embracing personal development and self-improvement, though it's a lifelong process, but it's something that is worthwhile at the end of the day. All of the innate qualities, every potential that we need inside of us lies within us, and not till we begin to look inwards and finding answers to all the nagging questions that we've been asking ourselves. Then we will begin to find the answers when we begin to look inwards. Now, this is the mission and the focus of Life Well Lived by Omobola Stephen. We want you to have a transformative mind shift as we listen to disruptive conversations from expert and professionals who have the right information to share with you. On today's show, I have Chris Hendricks, who is the songwriter and transformational speaker on the show with me. Thank you for joining me on the show, Chris Hendricks.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Chris Hendricks. You've been diagnosed with cerebral palsy, and that's these are some of the challenges that life brings our way. But going by your own experience, you've overcome this situation, and you have a lot to share with my audience. So we're looking forward to a really transformative show indeed going forward. Now, you've had a fair share of bullying and the challenges that often face people who are in your situation or your condition. So tell me, how did it all begin, and how were you able to cope despite being diagnosed with cerebral palsy?
Well, no matter what conditions we have, first of all, that's a great question. So first of all, a lot of people, I think that language and the words that we use to identify ourselves is really, really important. So for instance, I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy at the age of 4, and a lot of people like to identify that as a disability. And if you feel empowered by using that word disability, that's okay. There are some people that feel empowered by that word. I choose to use the word condition, right? Because the word disability to me says that I'm lacking something, or I'm missing something, or I need to seek something. Whereas the term condition is very neutral. And that perspective has allowed me to see my condition of cerebral palsy as a gift. It's given me a lot of really wonderful things. Now, I didn't always have this perspective. So to answer your question in terms of how I decided to cope, well, a lot of doctors and medical professionals, when I was younger, they wanted to give me the real down and dirty, if you will, about cerebral palsy, the challenges that I was going to face, right? So they would say things like, well, Chris, it's going to take you 10 to 15 times more energy to do the most basic things, to move from A to B. You're going to stand out, and standing out means you're going to have a hard time connecting with people. You're going to have a harder time making friends. Well, I saw my condition through a different lens, right? I'm blessed to wear my scar of cerebral palsy on the outside. So what that means is that I stand out. Now, not everyone likes to stand out, but I love standing out, right? I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm a speaker. I want to connect with people. I want to have the kind of energy that draws people to me. And so I view the lens of cerebral palsy in a very positive light. If I go into a room, I am very noticeable to others. And I use that quote unquote positive attention to create a sense of empathy between myself and the person that I'm trying to connect with. And if I think that if my belief is that cerebral palsy helps bring more empathy to the world and more connection to the world, then how could I not view it as a power and a force for good, right? So when I come into a room and someone notices my cerebral palsy, either from a place of empathy or curiosity, or maybe they're even scared, maybe they're concerned because they haven't connected with someone with a condition before. Well, I get to soften their heart, right? I get to surprise them. I get to bring a nurturing and positive energy to the light of quote unquote disability. And then, by the end of the conversation, I've made a connection. I've made a friend. I've gone deep with someone. And I think that people with quote unquote disabilities as a whole have a really powerful, reflective energy about them. Whether they can communicate like me, or they communicate with just eye contact. I mean, 90% of communication isn't even verbal, right? But all persons with conditions, all persons with quote unquote disabilities, force everyone around them to sort of look in the mirror and reflect on their own lives and think of the gifts that they've been given. And if I can't see that as a beautiful thing, and if we as a world can't see that as a beautiful thing, then I don't know where else to go. So that's a long-winded way of me answering your question, but that's how I've learned to cope, is I've chosen to see my condition as a positive thing and a force for good in the world.
Right, brilliant. Chris, I've listened to your experience. It all seems that you really had a supportive upbringing. I think pretty luck was on your side. Because it really helped you a lot when you have the right support system right from childhood. It helps you a lot. Or do you think the work came from you? It was an inner job that you alone had to do by yourself. Now, answering, I want you to respond to that. And in the other side, to those who are not lucky, who are not so that lucky to be in this kind of your situation where you had a lot of positive vibrations and positive energy going on for you, what is your own advice for them? How do you think they can cope and to become a really better version of himself, as you've been able to do?
Well, so to answer the first part of your question, that's a great question. I was indeed blessed with a lot of positive energy and positive influence. I had a mother that was very, very passionate about finding independent paths for me. And the same is true for my dad and my stepfather, who raised me. One of the smartest men I've ever met in my life. But to answer your question, the first part of your question, I don't really think there's any such thing as independence. I think the lone wolf idea, this idea that everyone's alone, or we have lonely stints or periods of time in our lives, is really a myth. There are villages around us. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, you've got a village somewhere. And so there's no such thing as independence. We live in a world of interdependence, in other words, you have moments where you have to figure out things by yourself, and you have moments where it takes a village. No matter any of the ladders that you've climbed in life, 9 times out of 10, there's no way that you did it all yourself. There's always been someone someone in your environment that has helped teach you a skill, or has encouraged you, or helped you find a way, even in a negative sense. Sometimes negative energy, as much as I like to try and keep that out of my life as best I can, we can't avoid it all the time, but negative energy can be fuel as well. There's been plenty of times in my life where people have spewed negativity my way, told me that things are not possible, how hard life was going to be. My early experiences with doctors telling me how hard it was going to be to make a friend and build relationships. I loved hearing how impossible life was going to be for me, because I used it as an opportunity to prove them wrong, right? So you're never really, really alone. That's to answer the first part of your question. The second question, for those out there that were not as blessed with the positive energy, or don't necessarily have the same supports that I have, well, I certainly can't speak to everyone's situation out there. I can only speak to my own. But if I think back to the times in my life when I was most alone, as hard as it was, you know, in order to move forward or move up in life, sometimes we just got to take leaps and wait for the net to appear. The safety net's not always going to be there, but energetically speaking, you know, the universe is so powerful. It's such we live in such a beautiful, energetic world that wants things to open up for us. And so, if we have the courage to leap and sort of take the risk and be brave when the net's not there, in my experience, the net has always appeared. While I can't speak to everyone for everyone's disability out there, for those that have the cognitive ability to communicate and to connect with other human beings, if you are brave enough to step out of your comfort zone and make that connection, and forge that energy of empathy, and a unified humanity, then paths are going to open for you. Your environment does not control you. You control your environment. And it starts with your thoughts, it starts with your perspective, and it starts with your belief. And if you have a disability, whether it's seen or unseen, you are surrounded by an energetic empathy that is untouchable for your able-bodied counterparts. And if you don't want to call that a superpower, that's fine, but that's how I choose to see it. And just know that that's never going to leave you. So even in times when you feel alone, you've got that empathetic energy like nobody's business. Use it to your advantage and build your village one person at a time.
Right. I'd like us to talk about the values of being underestimated. Now, when we hear the word underestimation, it always seems it's a negative word, quite right. And people think that it's only those who have disability that often faces this kind of negative situation. But I would like you to address this and put it in proper perspective. Why would someone really underestimate you? And is there any psychology behind it?
Well, I think that sociologically, the able-bodied community as a whole, history shows that persons with disabilities have been underestimated throughout history. I mean, if you go back to even Greek and Roman times, if it was found that a baby was born deformed or with challenges, the babies were just thrown off the cliff. They were not even given a chance to thrive or exist or live. And even today, in certain countries around the world, persons with disabilities are seen as cursed. So, you know, they're locked away in institution or even killed. So that's you know, a darker side of our history that hasn't really gone away, right? So to answer your question, yeah, I think that especially if you have to wear your scars on the outside, a lot of times people still today in 2024 see that as weakness. And it's really hard for people to see past those scars and see the gifts that we're able to offer as persons with conditions. But here's the thing, though, that's on them, right? For you as an individual, we talked about this when you asked me the last question, this whole idea about an empathetic energy and using that to your advantage, using your power to your advantage, right? If someone else underestimates you, right, that leaves open an element of surprise all the time, right? So in other words, as a person with a disability, I have the opportunity to constantly surprise people, right? And when you're able to surprise people in a really positive way, it just strengthens your power. It strengthens the bond that you forge with other people. It encourages others to look at people with disabilities as valued members of society who can contribute. So any opportunity you have to surprise people, as long as it's in a positive way, strengthens you, it strengthens the person you surprise, and it strengthens society as a whole. So use that opportunity, use that element of surprise. If you're out there and you've got a condition to brighten someone's day and sort of ground yourself in your own strength, because the more people see that, the more opportunities you're going to be given. I'll give you a really quick example. When I didn't have a job back in the day, when I was unemployed, my very first job was working at an electronics retailer called Best Buy. I don't know if they're still around, but I really wanted to work in Best Buy, but I didn't really have a resume. I just knew I really wanted a job there. So instead of writing a resume and going through your typical channels, I knew that people were going to, again, underestimate me when I walked into the store. I knew they weren't going to pay any mind to me. So I walked into the store and I went up to every person that worked there and I shook all of their hands. And I said, "Hi, my name is Chris Hendricks. I'll be working for you soon, or I'll be working with you soon." And I just walked to every employee, and because they underestimated me, they were like, "Who is this guy that's just saying he has a job here?" And then eventually the manager walked out and pulled me aside and said, "Hey, all of my team members are just telling me that you're saying that you work here, but you don't have a job." And I said, "I don't, but I will." And because of the the confidence that I brought to the table, along with, again, that empathetic energy that I keep talking about, she said, "Okay, well, do you have a resume?" And I said, "Well, I don't, but I've always wanted to work here." And she said, "Well, it turns out I need somebody. Can you interview right now?" And I got interviewed on the spot and I got the job. And I think this is something that you really believe in as well. So feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. If you come in daily, I don't know what is. And fast forward today, I'm connected to you, right? And we're sharing an empathy of self-improvement and empowerment, and empathy together. And I don't think that I would have the gift of this conversation with you today, had I not been born with scars on the outside, right? It's an immediate conversation starter. It's the topics that you and I went over before we hit the record button. I'm just so grateful to get to sort of carry this badge with me, because I'll always have something to say. So underestimate me all you want, and I'll bring all the surprise. And at the end of the day, we'll change the world together.
Absolutely. Thanks for springing the word of surprise, because I wanted to ask you really that in this kind of situation, how would you prove them wrong to those people who underestimated you? But now I think you've given me some positive response to that, just by giving them surprises. But really, can you just share a few tips or strategies that can help you to prove them wrong, or to bring up the surprises? Because I think that is an inner work. Don't you think so?
I completely agree. I think it's all about self-awareness, and not just self-awareness in general, but self-awareness really as a whole, and that encompasses the challenges that we face and the gifts that we're given, right? So in terms of tips and tricks, right? Number one on my list, journaling, right? Reflect on not just your day, but yourself. How regularly do you go inside yourself and ask the world, ask the universe, ask God, whatever you want to call it, what your strengths are? Why are you here? Why do you get a seat at the table? And that's a powerful question, but we live in a powerful universe, and you'll get a powerful answer. Right. And then you write it down, right? Write down your gifts, write down your strengths, write down your challenges. And then once you really have a good, solid understanding and a good, solid self-awareness of who you are as a person and what you bring to the table, that's how you can surprise people, right? So I've been singing since the age of 4. I've been writing since about the age of, I want to say 8 or 9. And I've been writing music since the age of 20, 21. And words have always been a strength of mine. And so I knew early on that I could use communication as a strength. And that's not always true for people with cerebral palsy. Again, I can't speak for everyone, but if you look at the data, um, a lot of people with cerebral palsy are incredibly intelligent, but due to challenges with their musculature around their vocal cords, verbal communication is not a strong suit. And they have to use electronic aids or personal aids or individual aids in order to sort of cross that communication barrier. I'm really, really fortunate to not have that. The scars that I wear are affect my legs primarily, my lower body. And so I get to walk this really beautiful tightrope, if you will, between the community of people with conditions, aka the disability community, and my able-bodied counterparts. And so I sort of see it as my mission to bring those two groups of people together in a positive way. But I would have never come to that conclusion. I would have never come to that sense of purpose without self-reflection, without journaling, without meditation. Silence is so beautiful. It's so powerful. If you can just cut the noise off for 20 minutes twice a day, close your eyes, focus on your breath, and then write down what the universe has to say, you would be surprised at just the spells that come out, the magic that comes out. And that's not anyone and everyone's magic. That's magic for you. That's a conversation that you had with the universe. That's the universe speaking to you and you alone. And that individual magic, that's how you surprise people. So once again, I think I've given you such a long-winded answer, but I hope that helps your listeners.
All right. I thank you, Chris Hendricks, for sharing those transformative thoughts and lines with my audience. So talking about disability advocacy and understanding in the workplace. Now, this is pretty challenges that confronts the disabled folks out there. So do you think that these are disability advocacy groups, do you think they're doing more? So talking about that and also the challenges in the workplace, you've had a fair share of that when you shared with me when you're looking for a job, how you were able to have the right energy, positive vibration that you were able to give out, and the same was given back to you. So that was a good one on your home part there. But let's talk about the real challenges in the workplace confronting the disability folks out there.
Well, first and foremost, that's a great question. There's lots of challenges. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is really important right now in 2024, and we're really grateful that there's finally a microscope that's been sort of placed under that idea, and that people are sort of forced to look at the necessity of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the importance and the diversity and the value of diverse employment, if you will. So part of it is timing, and I suppose that's not really a challenge, but a gift. The challenges that we still face as individuals with disabilities is a lot of employers just don't know how to handle us. A lot of employers still have not interacted directly on an ongoing basis with somebody with a disability, whether it's visible or invisible, right? Whether it's someone like me with cerebral palsy, or maybe it's their first time interacting with someone who has autism or is hard of hearing. There's an infinite list of conditions that we could go through, and a lot of times there's just a barrier of confusion that has to be overcome. And I think a lot of times employers see people with disabilities in the workforce as not worth the risk because they think that it's going to cost extra money to train them. They think it's going to take longer for people with disabilities to fit into the workflow and connect more with other members, other staff that doesn't have to face the challenges that they do. I think they're worried about the cost that they have to spend on accommodations, right? Whether it's electronic assistance or personal assistance, right? But what they're not looking at is the value that we bring to the table. If you look at the numbers, according to the Department of Labor, people with disabilities are the most loyal population, period. We are far more likely to stay employed. If an employer takes a chance on us, we're far more likely to stay employed longer than our able-bodied counterparts because we're fiercely loyal, right? It goes back to that sense of empathy and that sense of connection. We long for connection. We hunger for genuine connection. Not everyone really hungers for genuine connection anymore. I think that people think that they're connected because of social media, but social media is a superficial connection. It's not a real one. You're not truly connected with someone after reading their Instagram post, right? What you and I are doing right now, that's connection. We're having an actual conversation, right? You put faith in me that I'm going to bring a message to your audience that they're going to resonate with. And I put faith in you that your platform has the kind of energy that I want to interact with and I want to absorb and I want to share with the world, right? We took a risk there. That's genuine connection. That's genuine empathy, right? As soon as employers realize that these are things that people with disabilities bring to the table, especially, the sooner they're going to see us as valuable contributors to the workforce. And who knows, eventually we might actually get paid what we're worth.
All right. Now, so the flip side of it, to those who are unable to walk, right? Talking about the disabled folks, we also have those who are autistic, right? There's pretty challenging situation out there. To those who find it hard to walk, what do you suggest they should do?
Well, again, we live in a time where there are so many more open windows than there are closed doors, right? Just 20, 30, 40 years ago, the accessibility to technology, even though it existed, it was new, it was clunky, it was hard to master, and people just didn't know how viable this new communication technology was going to be in our world. But now it's 2024, and COVID hit, and jobs that were that used to be impossible to work remotely. Now you almost have to, as an employer, offer remote opportunities in order to get viable candidates, right? So work from home is an option. Technology like this, technology like Zoom, adaptable technology, medical technology that has medical devices have improved drastically just in the last 20 to 30 years. So persons with disabilities who can't walk or talk now have devices that get them from A to B better than ever before. They have communication devices that allow someone without a voice to have a voice, even if it's an electronic voice. And so their intelligence comes through, their empathy comes through, their connection comes through, even if the sound is a little bit different. So as far as to answer your question, what they should do, again, ask yourself questions like, what is my, go into a meditative state, focus on your breath, 20 minutes a day, 20 minutes twice a day, asking yourself the question in your head and in your heart, why am I here? What is my purpose? What am I good at? And once you have that list down, reflect on what you're good at, and then think about, okay, how can I use this to make money? And I'll tell you what, in 2024, here's the crazy thing. Now that we have artificial intelligence, which I know scares a lot of people, we could have like a whole podcast on artificial intelligence, but lots of positives and negatives. But one of the positives for the disability community, you can literally go and use things like ChatGPT, for example, and say, my name is Chris Hendricks. I have cerebral palsy. I was diagnosed at the age of 4. I am a speaker. I am a singer. I'm a good writer. I'm a good communicator. I have a bachelor's degree in exercise physiology, et cetera, et cetera. You can be as specific or as general as you want, and then ask artificial intelligence, I want a job that pays me $60,000 to $70,000 a year. It needs to be remote. It needs to have benefits. It needs to have all these things. And artificial intelligence will literally write you a plan that you can follow to get a job. So even if you don't have a person that's willing to take a chance on you, you now have a machine that has no choice but to take a chance on you. So if you're having a hard time building a human village, right? Which I stand by what I said. I think that we can. I think that we all can bring a village to us. But if you're having a hard time getting your parents' blessing, your cousin's blessing, your friend's blessing, whatever it is, to get out there and to be employed, as long as you have the cognitive ability to communicate, use AI, see what plan they put in place for you, and then take the steps using the internet, using the technology that you have available to you to move forward. And really, really quickly, I just want to add for parents out there that have adult children with different varying degrees of disability. All I can say is, while I cannot put myself in your situation. I am a father. I have a 6-year-old daughter at home, and all I can say as I watch her grow and I watch her expand, I know how scary it is to um, loosen the puppeteer strings and let our sons and daughters go out there and be independent and take risks. I know it's scary, but we must learn how to do it in a safe environment. And that applies to our children and our adult children with disabilities. We must have faith in each other to be as interdependent as possible. If we as parents don't have faith in our children, our children are never going to have faith in themselves to be able to go out there and make their own mark on the world. And that is especially true for disability.
Chris, do you have any exciting news or any projects you think it's going to be beneficial to the audience? Now, this is the right time for you to share that.
Well, I very much appreciate that question. So, my passion is, of course, traveling and speaking and performing. But at the moment, I've got a crew that wants to, or is actually filming a Chris Hendricks documentary. And I'm not really sure what the story is yet. We just had the people who believe in me really want to put together this documentary, so they're going to be following me around with cameras as I travel around and speak and perform. And the goal with that documentary is that it's released to film festivals, I think by the end of next year. So that's probably the biggest thing. But right now I'm just building my team. I have a wonderful PR person, and I'm looking at a couple different agents at the moment and managers and social media people. Going back to what we said at the beginning of the interview, right? It takes a village. There's no such thing as complete independence. We all need to build this beautiful machine, this beautiful business together. So I'm finding the right people at the moment, and I would love to perform and speak for you. And my favorite thing in the world to do actually is play at people's houses. So I play at one house concert a month, which means I go to your house and you fill your house with your friends, and I sing for you for 2 hours. I sing for you and I tell stories and I inspire you and I lift your spirits. And at the end of the day, I hope you get something from it. And we just sort of pass the bucket, and you pay what you want, what you will, what you can. And at the end of the year, in December, I'll be performing at Art Basel in Miami. So I'm really excited for that.
Excited to learn about this project, Chris. I and my audience sincerely wish you the best of luck in this project and also in the subsequent ones that you're going to embark upon, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you once again for joining me on the show and for this great and transformative insight you've shared to my audience. Can you quickly share your social media handles and your website so that my audience can learn more about you and all the great works you're doing?
Absolutely. I think that you and I will both resonate with this. I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but I bet you and I both believe in the power of I am, right? So all of my website and my social media handles start with I am, right? So my website is www.iamchrishendricks.com. And all of my social media handles, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I'm sure I'm missing one of them, but they're all at I am Chris Hendricks.
Brilliant. Thank you once again, Chris. It's been worthwhile having Chris Hendricks, songwriter and transformational speaker, share its thoughts and insight about the disability folks out there, the experiences that he has been to and how he has been able to be a better version of himself. Indeed, Chris Hendricks is a better version of himself. You are really inspiration to my audience and even to the global world out there. We wish you best of luck once again, Chris, and hoping that the universe will always reward all the labor of love you are showing and the support you're showing to the disability advocacy world out there. God bless you once again. Now, if you'd like to catch up with any missed episodes of the show, you can do so on any cross promotion platforms or any distribution platforms you bump into online, and do have a great time. Listen to the show and do have a transformative mind shift, which is the focus of the show, like we all lead by Omobola Stephen. I need you always to stay safe. I talk to you soon. Thank you once again, Chris Hendricks.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you subscribe and leave us a review.